What's up, everybody? I'm Tyler Caldwell.
And I'm Chris Harrith.
And today we want to talk to you about maybe some sampler sorcery that we have going on at Smoking Pipes. And this is the kind of Cuban sampler that we have up right now.
Kind of Cuban as in cigars that taste like Cuban cigars?
Well, there's a little bit of a story behind it. We have some pretty amazing customers here. And we have customers who are domestic within the United States and some who are abroad internationally. So the idea behind this pack is for our international customers who have a little more easier access to Cuban tobacco. You often find people outside of the States who are wanting more domestic release cigars, but they still like that Cuban style profile. And so this pack is kind of designed for that type of person, but also for the people within the United States who have never smoked a Cuban. It's really hard to obtain one. This is also for you because these are things that are going to fit that Cuban-esque profile in a nice little variety pack.
Yeah, and one of the things when I start talking with people about what I do and here working at Smoking Pipes, and I'm into cigars, and I've been into cigars since before I started working here, especially living here in the United States, one of the first questions people ask you when they find out you're into cigars is, hey man, you got any Cubans? Or have you ever tasted a Cuban? Or what are Cubans like? Aren't they the best? And so I think there's like really just this big misconception out there about like what a Cuban cigar tastes like. Is it like the thing you put on a pedestal to always like attain, and like no cigar can really reach what a Cuban cigar is? But I like to tell people that it's not necessarily better, it's just different.
Right.
And
it's unique in its own way.
Right. And a lot of people understand that if you put it like in wine terms for them. You know, like there's different growing regions in the wine culture and the wine industry, just like in the cigar industry.
Right.
And so, yes, a Cuban cigar will taste different than one from Nicaragua or one from Dominican Republic. Does it make it better? It may make it something that you enjoy more, just the flavor profile, but it's not something you should put on a pedestal and really only want to smoke Cubans. It's really just like something that can just be in your rotation if you have access to it.
Sure.
Living in the United States, the Cuban embargo has made them very hard to get as an American. You know, there's ways we won't go into in this video on how to obtain them, but if you do travel internationally, it's something you can try just to kind of experience and just see that it's not something that's crazy special.
Right.
It is a cigar. It tastes like tobacco. But I think when we start talking about like Cuban cigars, it's really a certain couple notes in a Cuban cigar that make it a little bit different than a New World.
Sure.
A lot of times you'll hear people use the term Cuban twang. It's
Cuban
like
twang, Cuban-esque.
right. It's almost like a hay-like flavor note that a lot of people seek out. But also, like, when you say Cuban cigar, that's like also saying Dominican cigar. And there's 15 or 20 different brands in the Havana's portfolio. So they are not all the same. So it's just like saying that, you know, a Drew Estate tastes like a Hoya. I mean, all the Nicaraguan cigars all taste the same. That's not the case. You know, Cuba has different growing regions, different farms, different soil types just on that one island, just like Dominican Republic and Nicaragua do. So these cigars that you've picked out in this pack, I think do a really great job of just bringing that experience to the consumer in a much more accessible way.
And to go along with that, you know, if you look back into like the cigar boom of the 90s, right? There was always this interpretation that, you know, Cuban cigars were going to be powerful. They were going to be just way more intensified than what was in the market of the U.S. at the time.
Right.
And now you come to today's time, and like that's really not the case.
No.
A lot of cigars that are coming from the other regions outside of Cuba are far more intensified when it comes to flavor, body, strength. Not to say that there are Cubans out there that still don't fit that caliber, but it's just nowhere near the intensity level of like today's domestic style of cigars.
Yeah, and I think the New World cigars, as we all call them here in the industry, New World being cigars not made in Cuba. So you're thinking about places like Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras, being the New World places that cigars are made. For those, I think you actually have some advantages over Cuban cigars. The first being, as somebody who lives in the United States, they're just more accessible.
Sure.
You don't have to worry about customs seizing your packages or something like that as you do with like Cubans. But firsthand experience for me has been that New World cigars typically will have better construction across the board. I've purchased boxes of Cuban cigars and smoked through them and had 10 to 15 that are almost unsmokable just due to construction issues or not being fermented long enough or not aging in their humidors long enough, where a lot of times in the New World factories, you have much stricter quality controls. Right. You have sales reps you can reach out to if there are quality issues where you're not going to have that in Cuba. Where I think that just construction-wise, you're going to have a better experience with a New World cigar. Also due to the multiple different ways that these blenders can blend tobacco, with Dominican marrying together with the Nicaraguan tobaccos, you can get more interesting flavor profiles than maybe just the 1 or 2 notes you're getting out of Cuba. But these cigars do a great job of just really touching on that experience that you might find in a Cuban tobacco.
Sure. And, also to go along with that is, I've known many of Cuban cigar collectors who they smoke one and they say, man, this box is going to be great in 4 years.
Yeah.
Where cigars of this that we're going to, say kind of Cuban, these are made to smoke right now.
Yeah.
Like they're ready
fresh
to go.
pack, ready to roll.
Exactly.
You're going to get a lot of what that cigar is going to be immediately. Some of them will age, great as well, but these are where the blender intended them to be right now. Where in Cuba, the Cuban cigar market, a lot of the forums I used to be a part of, it was like, hey, if you get that 2025 box, it's going to be great to smoke in 2030.
Right.
Well, you're going to be loading your humidor with Boveda packets, and then in my case, like taking up half of my closet storing Cuban cigars to smoke in 5 years.
Right.
Your significant other does not love that so much when you start taking their closet space as well. But the great thing about New World cigars is they are coming to you. They've been aged in a lot of cases. And they are ready to smoke as the blender intended them to be right when you get them out of your brick and mortar or, in our case, online.
Or as soon as this pack touches your hands,
Absolutely.
it's ready to open up,
Absolutely.
cut and light. So let's get a little bit into what the cigars of the kind of Cuban sampler are.
Sounds good.
So you have the Fonseca, which is historical in the Cuban community of the cigar industry, right?
Yeah.
But now Fonseca, in the domestic side of things, the rights are owned by the My Father Cigar Company. So you will see when you look at these, it's going to say Fonseca, but have the My Father logo. But it is, in my opinion, designed to give you that old school style of what Fonseca Cubans were known for.
Yeah, and one thing I really appreciate about Cuban cigars and My Father cigars as well is the artwork. In my opinion, My Father, when you're looking at a humidor and a brick and mortar, My Father cigars really stand out in the beautiful artwork, very traditional, very family oriented.
Sure.
And when you tie the Fonseca, historically Cuban brand in with that, I think they've taken that to a next level.
For sure.
And I've been excited about the Fonseca line ever since it came out from My Father.
So next we have the Warped Devil's Hands, which I've always loved. Pretty much anything that comes from Warped.
Yeah.
I would put them in kind of like a top 5 level
of
brand
course.
for me. But what I also like about them is their style of art. It's minimalist, but it almost, if you look at like the style of boxes, example for Cuban cigars.
That cab of 25.
Right.
Yep.
You get that, with Warped, you get that kind of like, I don't want to say they aim for a Cuban-esque style of packaging, but it's almost like paying homage to it from my view. But with the Devil's Hands, you're going to find something that is in the Cuban vein of, I would say, maybe like a Ramon Alones, a Bolivar, something that does have that like punch.
Yeah, my first thought when I saw this on the sampler was a Partagas.
Right.
Partagas in the Cuban portfolio is known in Bolivar to be on the stronger side, like I said, of their entire portfolio. And I think, like you just talked about, Warped in general, when it comes to brands that really steer towards the traditional Cuban-esque, like medium. They nail medium cigars
Absolutely.
perfectly. Kyle and his team over at Warped does a great job of just, in my opinion, taking that Cuban experience but elevating it with New World tobaccos.
Sure. Next up, we have the Kuravari Buenaventura. So what I have always loved about Kuravari is, for one, they're kind of like the industry's best kept secret.
Yeah, that's all we talk about here.
It's everywhere, but no one knows anything about
Right.
them, right? But what I like about them, if you go through their portfolio, if you look at the way they design their bands, a lot of it is to pay homage to classic Cuban
There's a
varieties and
beauty.
everything.
There's a beauty in the simplification of their packaging, of their bands. Just the gold band with the one logo in the middle. Ramon Alones, being a Cuban brand, is one of the ones that that really does that well. And that cigar from Kuravari really just like brings that to me in a New World package.
Absolutely. Next up, we have the Bandelero. Bandelero is, in my opinion, probably going to be the more Cuban-esque style of the pack. It is made by Select Tobacco down in Costa Rica. It's also known for making Atabey, Byron, things like that. And there is a tale that the inventor of that is known from coming from helping with the blending and the process of the Cohiba Bahique.
Okay.
So, to me, the Bandolero has that just what you think of when you smoke a Cuban style cigar. It's got that floral note. It's got, like you said, that hay.
Yep.
Just absolutely incredible cigar.
Yeah, and you just threw out a brand that people in the Cuban world who may be thinking about, it's not on this sampler pack, but people who want to start experimenting with New World cigars while trying to get that same idea of a Cuban portfolio would be Atabey.
Sure, absolutely.
Atabey is one that a lot of people cross over and smoke when they're looking into New World cigars.
Lastly, in this pack, we have the Aladino Corojo Reserva. So a slight tale for Aladino is the family that originated with Camacho.
Yes.
Camacho, in the earlier days, were very synonymous with that Cuban style, just that Cuban aesthetics, everything like that. And what I like about the Corojo Reserva is it's more of paying homage to what Camacho used to be, but now they've got their Aladino twang to it.
Yeah.
And just absolutely a little bit of a powerhouse, but definitely in that vein of like the Bolivar style Cuban. I would even maybe touch on something like a Hoy de Monterey.
Sure.
In that kind of vein.
Corojo tobacco used in this cigar is very unique. I've heard a lot of people say that you can tell when somebody in the room is smoking Corojo.
Sure.
And I've heard a lot of blenders in the cigar industry say that that's one that when they're smoking a cigar, they can immediately tell that there's that genuine Corojo in it. And I don't think there's a better cigar on the market that utilizes Corojo tobacco than Aladino and this cigar in particular.
And I, just on a personal level, I've always found Honduran tobacco to be, for the most part, the most similar to Cuban tobacco. And Aladino is obviously from Honduras, but the Corojo Reserva is 100% Honduran grown.
Perfect example. I think these five will give somebody who lives in the United States who wants to just get a touch of what the Cuban portfolio is like, a chance to experience that in these. It will give those international buyers a chance to, who have traditionally had access to Cubans but now want to start trying New World cigars. These will give you a way into that while not being a shock to the palate like maybe a Nicaraguan powerhouse would be.
Sure.
We hear a lot of people who smoke Cubans who start trying things like maybe a Padron or something because they've heard Padron is great and they're like, whoa, that was just like way strong, like that was just a lot. Where these will start dipping your toes into New World cigars without just being like a punch in the palate.
For sure. So now I will say for you out there, these packs do get revised over time. So next time you see these available online, if they are gone, they may be a little bit different. So we would also like your opinion. If you did not see your most favorite Cuban-esque cigar in this pack, let us know which one is yours. Maybe you'll see it next time.